It's time for Cutting Edge Consciousness with Freeman Michaels and Barnet Bain. Thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
And welcome to Cutting Edge Consciousness. Freeman Michaels here.
With Barnet Bain. Good moment. I'm a little concerned about this
You're fighting,
mic. I know I'm going to
You're fighting with your mic again,
I'm going to
Barnet.
get bopped in the face any moment by this thing that's just going to come flying down at me. But sit.
For those of you who are new to the show, Barnet's been in a fight with his mic for years.
But I've never had it poised quite like this, so it just looks a little dangerous right now. But we're going to see what happens.
Yeah, you'll be okay. I keep talking him down.
We have trained medical people here.
That's right. Hey,
it's good to be here.
Yeah.
Take a little breath here.
Yeah.
Get a little centered. Huff into this mic.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, because it's been a little while, what's up with Milton? Milton's Secret, the film that you've been working on.
A lot.
The reason I can't get a hold of you when I call?
Yeah. I'm sorry about that.
It's okay.
So Milton's Secret, for those of our listeners who don't know, the title is actually Milton's Secret, an adventure of discovery through then, when, and the power of now.
Wow.
How's that for a title? We can get that on a poster.
Yeah.
It's based on a book written by Eckhart Tolle and Robert S. Freeman, and it's a live-action movie about a stressed-out kid and a stressed-out family in a stressed-out town. And it's quite beautiful. I'm very excited about it. Peter Fonda is playing the lead. So it's coming together soon. That's what's going on with it.
I love it. I mean, I love the script because I've had the opportunity to read it. And
I'll give you the new one. I just rewrote it.
Oh, yeah. Wonderful. So what I love also is that you're drawing in some support for this, which I know is new for you. And I don't know how that's working out, but the Indiegogo plan. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, good question. Yes, we are drawing in support. I mean, I've been making these kinds of movies, and so is our guest, actually, who we're fortunate to be able to extend this conversation with him soon. But I'm making these kinds of movies now for a long time, and they trickle out so slowly, and there are reasons for that. The industry is not really designed, it's not really set up to support the kind of fan base, this niche fan base. They really are more interested in reaching the largest amount of people with the least amount of energy and resources possible. And so these kinds of films, transformational films, don't really fit that model. And so it's been a challenge to do them. And then recently, things have been happening like Oprah Winfrey started her own channel, and companies like Whole Foods and IKEA and Patagonia began to practice conscious capitalism.
Yeah.
And people like Eckhart and Jack Canfield and Neil Donald Walsh have sold like 1 billion books. And so I thought, my goodness, things are really changing.
Well,
it's really changing.
You've been in this long before all of that began to transpire. I mean, we go back to What Dreams May Come, which, 1999, when it was released, was a film maybe ahead of its time, though it spoke to the unfolding of a consciousness and awareness about how thoughts are things and we're creating reality and these kinds of notions that now become almost commonplace. Like people, oh yeah, your thoughts create, things and creates reality.
In our community anyway, yeah. Wow.
So you've been willing to jump ahead, and this show itself, I mean, our intention here is not to repeat, but to try to, forge a way into something yet undiscovered, and and blaze some trails. So this is another way.
Well, it's another trailblaze, and it's another way to make a movie and message it in a way that that it connects with a transformational audience at the level that audience wants to be served, as opposed to having certain ideas and messaging, casting and plot points shoehorned into a worldview that is more general. And previously, we haven't really been able to do that. And now with things like crowdfunding, we can do that. We can invite people in the same way that PBS does and says, if you want to see this kind of programming, you can support it. We can likewise do the same thing for audiences that are interested in films and programming about love and transformation, we can, to paraphrase the great man, we can now invite people to be the message they want to see by contributing and being a supporter and participating and co-creating in the manifesting of these kinds of things. So it's the confluence of some great movements that are happening in the world, and one is the ever increasing mainstreaming, up-leveling and mainstreaming of spirituality and consciousness issues. It's just spreading like wildfire through the mass consciousness.
Through the internet. I mean,
through the internet. It's just, the internet is one vehicle of the expression of it, but
right.
It's an energetic up-leveling that finds expression however, through whatever forms it are available to it, including the internet. Crowdfunding is another example that allows people to one-on-one bypass what were traditionally gatekeepers and support things. So we are putting together our movie, not entirely using crowdfunding, but supplementing the budget requirements by turning to Indiegogo and crowdfunding it.
I love it. And I love where it's a moment in time which is ripe for innovation, because the way the energy that we're talking about, the field of possibility that's opened up with the internet, with all the next idea is going to come. It's right behind, it's right behind you. In the past, if you were innovating, it could be a rough road. And it's not to say it isn't still. I imagine some folks have more challenges than others, but the impetus, the trajectory, this way in which, exciting times, right?
Really exciting times. Cutting new trails. This is really map making, brand new. It is very helpful to have collaborators like Eckhart Tolle and Peter Fonda. This is a really helpful thing, and yet it's still scary. But frankly, the only reason it's not really scary.
Right,
the only part of me that finds it scary is the part of me that wants to really play it safe and look good. And look good, because if I fail big and publicly, and I still have those issues. What am I going to say? I have issues.
All right. So look, speaking of collaborators, we have a wonderful collaborator with us today. Folks, you know him. He's been on the show several times. He's a friend of the show. And, what I love about him is this same risk. He's risked going into something, compelled to go into a space that has opened up portals of possibility for so many people. So without further ado, I want to
add one thing to it.
Okay, go ahead.
So we're gonna further ado.
Okay,
because
further ado.
What I want to add to it is he has been my friend for 30 years. We counted out today in the parking lot. For 30 years. And I want to credit him for changing my life. Prior to meeting my friend Darryl Anka, I had no understanding of what metaphysics and spirituality was. And so there's really no one that I can look at, that I can point to, who has had more impact on making me the man that I am today than Darryl Anka. And so I'm very pleased that you're here today.
Thank you. I'm really, really pleased to be here, guys. Thank you so much for having me again. So you're blaming me for everything that you are, right?
That's right.
Is that what's happening here? It's all my fault.
I am according
Mea culpa.
I am according you the recognition for all of the gratitude that I hold for the bounty and the beauty of my life.
I think we change each other. And certainly,
when I met you, you had a full head of
you
hair,
as
so
well.
something's changed.
Something has definitely changed.
We've all grown a little over the last 30 years.
You guys have opened up a lot of different things that I would love to respond to, or at least put my 2 cents in about the crowdfunding thing, the idea of taking risks. There's actually, you mentioned the idea of the changing of the guard, the gatekeepers, opening it up. There's something actually, quite a major shift coming up in crowdfunding at the end of September. Last year, President Obama signed a new law called the Jobs Act, which is Jumpstart Our Business. And the idea is that now they're starting to open up crowdfunding to investors. You can actually, at the end of September, I think the first phase goes into effect, and you can actually start to advertise these projects and let people know about them on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, openly, and ask for investment openly to accredited investors to come on board and start to actually be personally involved and own a piece of these projects. So I think that's going to open the floodgates and open the doors to more and more people being capable of supporting these kinds of projects, grassroots projects, whatever it is that inspires them. They'll be able to come on board and really be a part and be participants in these things now.
So I want to jump into the risk, the open to something that wants to come through us, this creative thing that happens where we feel compelled to allow something to come through us.
Exactly. And I mean, that's really what I wanted to address is in some ways, I sort of see it just the opposite. To me, it's a greater risk to not move forward.
Exactly. I agree with you. I agree with you.
Those things.
But look, there is a tipping point,
I
right?
know,
Okay.
I know how society often sees these things. Yeah. But just from my own experience, every single time I've ignored that push within me, ignored my passion or my
that'll cause suffering.
It does cause suffering, and it's a much greater risk to my personal peace.
Okay, so there's three of us that are artists that have all succumbed to the creative impulse in spite of ourselves, in spite of the small self. The let's be safe, let me get my needs met, let me get affirmation. Okay, I'm willing to risk. I've never asked this question. I've always been curious. So when you first made contact with Bashar, and I know actually, folks, you have a movie coming out. We can talk more about that. Sure. I'm excited about that too. And I know that'll be illustrated in the movie. But when you first experienced this thing, this entity coming through you, you caught the glimpse and then you were compelled. And then, I mean, that had to have been terrifying, right?
I think at that point I had done enough study that I wasn't so much terrified, but I was extremely confused. I wasn't sure if what I was experiencing was real. I didn't know if it was a hallucination. I didn't know if it was just my imagination making things up. So I don't think I was so much scared as just kind of like, what is happening to me?
Yeah.
And is it something that actually has any basis at all in what we consider reality to be? Or am I just out in left field?
Logic and reason back in the day.
Something.
We wanted to.
Can it be verified? Can it?
We wanted to double blind it.
Exactly. Well, the thing that actually helped me happened instantaneously in the moment when I first received what I would perceive as a telepathic message from Bashar when I was in the channeling class, and that was that the second this was all going on in my head, the entity coming through the teacher in the class actually stopped talking at that moment and turned right to me and said, there is an entity here now for you if you want to begin. And I looked over at another classmate, and somehow she was also perceiving what I was seeing in my head, and she was actually drawing an image of Bashar that I saw in my head.
Wow.
So I actually had two immediate validations outside of myself that let me know, okay, I'm not totally crazy here. Something is really going on. I don't know what it is, no clue. But it was enough to let me know, okay, there's a reason this is happening, and at that point in my life, I realized that if this is what's happening to me right now, there's a reason to pursue it, to see where it goes. Because I already knew that channeling, in essence, is something that everyone can do, and everyone does do when they get into the state of following their passion. And I knew that it allows us to develop a broader perspective of life and can bring through higher level information that can be of help. That was the reason I decided to go forward with it.
And I think that's what you said the first time you came on the show. This is available to everybody. It's not a special boy thing. I happen to tap into it for the reasons that we can even say I don't know, right?
Yeah.
It's at once disorganizing, but at the same time, it's clarifying because this is what I'm meant to be doing.
It's reorganizing.
Reorganizing.
Yeah, you have to disorient in order to then reorient. You have to unlock from the reality that you're used to in order to lock into a new one. And I understand that can make you feel like you're sort of adrift for a while. And for a lot of people, that can be scary. But I think, I've sort of been a fan of being adrift all my life. So in that sense, it was home territory for me.
I want to zero in on this being adrift thing because I have known you for 30 years. We call it because we reference back to the way we have been our imaginations have been structured and the way we've been socialized. So we call it a drift. But really, at its truest expression, what we are tapping into is presence. We are being present.
Yes.
And so that unfolds in a way that the Buddhists call spontaneous right action.
Right.
It's out of being present, you put your foot down, and the mystical knowing is that the world generates below it, so that the foot falls upon it, and it generates in accordance with your thought and belief and choice and decision and attitude and feeling. Whoops.
Yeah, it's only a drift from the perspective of what you're used to, but it's actually coming home. It's actually focusing.
It's fully
in
alive
really
and dynamic, and you are co-creating in the moment. So you have been a model of that for a long time.
Big time.
And certainly before you deeply understood it.
Yes.
You know, and it just looks like somebody swanning off a high board. Yeah. And hoping the pool will be filled.
It always will be, though.
That's
always
what I've
will
found.
Be.
Well, that's we'll call it a leap of faith. I mean, that's this place where, again, I just want to throw my experience to this, because there is this sense that something is wanting to be born through me. And I mean, this show represents that, right? Just the fact that we started it with, some idea of what we wanted to create. And then after that, it's been who knows, but it's so many moments of coming clear, like, oh yeah, that's what we're doing. Oh yeah, that's what we're doing. And allowing that process to unfold. So I want to transition now to this film, because that is the topic for today. Not that we have to stick with it, but just that you have Dearly Departed was the film that came out last year.
First film, right? Yeah. Which it's on Amazon on video, streaming and download.
Which we highly recommend you check out, folks.
It's an exploration. It's a fictional documentary that's an exploration of what may happen to us in the afterlife by interviewing the spirits of the dead in the afterlife.
I had a conversation with somebody in the industry about it. And they said, so you mean it died? The film died? I said, no, it didn't. The film didn't die. It's about
death.
It just shows you where people
that's the pessimism of the industry.
Where people come from.
Yeah. There's so much fear, we don't want to die.
It died? No, it didn't die.
It's about near death.
And then this next film,
afterlife.
And this next film is more biographical.
Yes.
Right?
Now this is a true documentary. It's about how I became a channel, what channeling is, demystifying the whole idea of channeling, who Bashar is as an entity, what his messages are about. But it's also, in the overall sense, the idea of what really will happen to our society if and when we actually have open contact with an extraterrestrial civilization. What impact is going to happen? How are things going to change or not within us? And I also want to go back a little bit and make this connection of what we were saying before. Filmmaking and anything that you love to do, any creative endeavor like that is channeling. So I'm still channeling by making movies. You're channeling by making movies. Absolutely. You're channeling by doing what you love to do.
Yeah. And we have long had contact with calibrations of life and consciousness other than logic and reason and time and space. So, I mean, your movie is the exploration of what happens when we are aware of other life forms occupying the same time and the same space in the same frequency, physicalized. Right. What will happen then? Although you personally have been exploring what that looks like in relationship to consciousness, to telepathic communication for a very, very long time.
All right, that's a huge can of worms.
Freeman is showing, we got to take a break.
Let's tuck it all back in for one moment.
We got to sell some stuff.
So let's go to commercials.
We'll be right back after we sell some stuff.
And then we'll launch afterwards.
We'll be back here with Darryl Anka and Freeman Michaels and myself. Hurry back.
Welcome back to Cutting Edge Consciousness, thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
Welcome back. We're so glad you hung in there with us after we sold whatever it was that I hope you bought. So we're back here with Freeman and Daryl. Before the break, we were before the bake-off, we were inching toward a discussion of your new movie, and we were talking about the impact, the popular impact of changing the mindset in such a dramatic way that people have to open to what it means to experience, to acknowledge that we are not alone, that our ideas of life are not the way we thought.
One of the things that we're exploring, not so much even directly, but in the subtext of the documentary, which is called Bashar, First Contact, is the idea of extraterrestrial contact is not just contact with beings other than ourselves. It very deeply involves a need to be more in contact with the deeper parts of ourselves as well. Because there are indications that many of these other beings that people talk about from other civilizations operate in a much more integrated and holistic way. And unless we do too, we won't really be capable of operating on a similar frequency and interacting with them as equals. So the external exploration is predicated on an internal exploration and a connection that needs to be made so that the outer one can be experienced in a more positive way.
So you have pulled back the lid on a question that comes up constantly in my world anyway, and I'm guessing in yours as well. People are constantly asking, well, what is transformational entertainment? Mm-hmm. And I think you've just alluded to it. We go to the movies, there's a hero or a shero, and they are faced with certain challenges, and they run like heck, or they bite off a lot, they chew like crazy, and they hope to swallow it. And things happen outside of them that they meet up against, and in the end, things outside change, and when they change, for better or worse, the central hero's predicament is resolved and lives happily ever after. In transformational films,
I love this distinction.
The change is internal, and what may or may not happen in the outer world is secondary to what goes on in the inner world. The transformational entertainment is an explication of internal processes that show up as shadow play, as light play on the screen of the outer world. So you have just, in your own way, said very much the same thing. You want to add to it?
Well, I think that's what people go to the movies for, is if they can identify with what the main protagonist is going through, then hopefully if the hero goes through an internal transformation, at least some part of the audience will too, and come out as different people, seeing things in different ways. And for a film to be able to do that, I think is a marvelous attribute of that art. It's one of the most powerful forms, I think, of art and entertainment that there is, and I think that's why people are really, really attracted to them, is they know that the best films are going to allow them to accept change within themselves and become something different, something new.
It's a pathway through which we can experience something that we may or may not be able to process in our day-to-day life, right? We call it suspend your disbelief. You go on a ride, you come out with a certain experience, and it feels entirely real on the felt level. One of the things I want to bring up is, in the very beginning, I talked about the internet. Just as, at one time, if you needed to look something up, you had to go to your encyclopedia. If you're an encyclopedia salesperson, there's no, it's not a great career path at this point in time.
Well, you're with the record store and the Maytag repairman in a special place reserved for
It's called the junk cage. Yeah, that's right. But so what I kind of get is that we now can speed things up. We can get information and flit around in such a quick way. And what I heard you say earlier, Daryl, was and it actually harkens back to the first time you were on the show, that this is becoming more and more available, in essence, to everyone. This is the point that you just made about the film, is that it's really saying, look, guys, you think the internet is cool? You want information? You want it fast? Here, try this. That's what I'm getting. Yeah.
Try being yourself. Try getting into that state where you are automatically and instantaneously downloading exactly what you need when you need it.
Yes.
Getting into that spontaneous, synchronous space where everything that you need manifests to you because you're becoming equal to the vibration of that thing. Manifestation isn't really attracting something to you from somewhere else. It's simply making visible what's already here that was heretofore invisible to you because you weren't on the same wavelength. So it's like getting into that state of passion, of channeling, is going to allow you to access everything you need to be your fullest self. And that, to me, is super exciting.
It's super exciting.
You look excited.
I'm thrilled.
You were talking about, you're going through your labor pains. What are you attempting to birth, Freeman? I'm interested in what you were talking about.
You know, it's a big I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things that you worked with me on something I call my personal proclamation, which is where I have looked at various activities in my life and various moments where I was inspired, where I was in a trance-like state. And I can't tell you exactly what happened, but I want more of that. So in my own sort of wanderings and wonderings, the things that I look to for clues as to what wants to be birthed through me are those moments and those frequencies. Fun, for example, is one of them. So whatever I do, I know that element of fun, the collaborative element, you and I both know. I got to collaborate. I love people. And then this, I was an actor for many years. You may or may not know that. There's all these ways. It has to have that creative piece. There's a writing piece. There's a communicator piece. So it's interesting. It hasn't taken form. And some days that's unnerving.
Well,
go ahead.
What are you doing right now?
Well, this is it. So don't tell anybody. My secret thing is I want to do this all the time.
Well, see, you're doing that. Because I can see the energy in you when you do this, and it is all the things you just mentioned.
Totally.
So,
well, it's a great moment in time to say, look, I'm doing what I love to do, and there's a sort of wondering how, and looking for other outlets to do the same sort of quality of experience. It doesn't have to look the exact same, right? And wondering if they're going to play out to be all that I do. It would be a aspiration of mine, but as yet, my universe, as it's playing out in real time, hasn't totally come clear. Muddy waters haven't cleared, and the way hasn't parted for me to say, oh, that's it. So it's almost like, I'm waiting for it to take form,
Well, but it is taking form every second.
You're right.
And the idea is that if you're waiting for some particular thing to happen,
that's the frequency.
You're looking out there. You're not staying here and experiencing the form that it is.
Yeah.
And really, that's the paradox. The more you just experience the form as it is, the more the form will change and unfold. But if you're like looking for a particular manifestation to recognize when it unfolds, it's kind of like you miss the unfolding that's going on right now.
Not only miss the unfolding, but there is if we use the radio analogy, we're broadcasting a signal to the holodeck of waiting. And so the holodeck plays back an experience of waiting, and then we have an unvirtuous loop of frustration that I certainly know this one very, very intimately. Well, but what I love.
So I don't know if it's the word waiting, though. I may be waiting, which may be part of what is blocking it from unfolding. Though I recognize all the ways I'm doing this, right? So there are, Empower Me TV. I'm doing a little work with them, and we're seeing if that floats. And we're doing this other thing over here, and see if that floats.
But I think it's not so much maybe waiting, but you're framing it in a way, in a relationship that may not necessarily be fully perceiving the idea of just what's happening fully in the present. I'm just getting a sense that there's an outside, not so much waiting, but there's an expectation out here of something else. It's just like there's another piece missing. You're feeling like there's a piece missing.
Yeah.
And I think it's that sense that something is missing, or that assumption that something is missing, which is then perhaps depriving you of realizing that perhaps nothing is missing at all. And if you stay in the idea that nothing is missing, you may suddenly experience that nothing is missing.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
What I heard you say, and really beautifully, is that you bring is it you bring certain kinds of qualifications that you are putting out. Is it fun?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does it allow me to express my gifts and my talents and my passions?
Totally.
Is it of value to myself and to other people?
Mm.
And then beyond that, what I picked up from Daryl just now, in my own life, I have a stealth below the line agenda that I'm putting out too, that has to do with a whole bunch of other baggage. Where I am pretending that, is this going to vindicate my life?
Yeah,
is
totally.
this
The baggage is going around the carousel at the airport, just around and around. Am I going to pick this up or leave it there?
Yeah.
Is
someone going to
give
pick me? Is there going to be there's a whole,
Are there guarantees of things involved?
Yeah, exactly.
Is there, are there securities? Are there absolutes? There are this whole other agenda that I am, quote unquote, too sophisticated to cop to in my life.
Yeah.
Or I think I should know better, and that itself is an agenda that puts out a frequency.
Yeah, I see that in a lot of people exploring metaphysics is they think that nothing is supposed to go, quote unquote, wrong in their lives. It's like, I should be more spiritual than this. But really exploring those things that come up is the whole point of spiritual exploration.
Totally.
Is you have to find out what things are not vibrating in accordance to your true self and deal with them and integrate them, or you're actually not really taking advantage of the spiritual path. It's not just about never having a challenge. It's about facing the challenge and integrating the challenge in a way that you know that it belongs in your life and there's not something wrong because it popped up.
Totally agree. Yeah, totally agree. Yeah. So we're doing what we do.
We're doing what we do.
And we love it.
And we do.
Yeah.
And that's why we do it, because we love it. And it is the thing we need to do, because that is the less risky
Let's
thing
get
to
management.
It's a
let's
great
get management
reason.
on the phone now. We
wanna negotiate our
we want a
contract.
4-hour slot, Spence. Hello, Spence is looking away.
Yeah.
I didn't hear that. I didn't see that, and I don't care.
The reason to do it is because I love it. It's such a powerful reason to do something.
And that's reason
you're good
enough. And that's reason enough.
My sense is you do it. I think I don't think we have to work that hard. If we're loving it, again, it's the fun is a frequency that we can follow. That'll lead me into some possibilities that could be cool. Inspired. Well, that inspires me. That could lead me into some possibilities that could be cool. And so that premise that this is a thread to follow. Some of the fear stuff can lead me into all kinds of, well, this would be safe and secure, and I know I can get a 401k and a good insurance policy or a good insurance, whatever, medical insurance. Then it's okay.
It's always important to honor your beliefs. You have to acknowledge what beliefs you have. And if you really don't believe that acting on your highest excitement can support you, it would be foolish to let go of the things you believe you need. It'd be like jumping off a cliff without knowing you have a parachute. So it's not about dishonoring the beliefs you have, but it's about letting go of them at a pace and in a way that allows you to at least explore the idea that your excitement can support you.
I love that.
And let it support you at a pace
love
that teaches you that you can trust it more and more and more until you no longer need those beliefs you think that you still need.
So don't stop going to the doctor, folks. Don't give up your insurance policies.
No.
Don't sell your house.
Don't sell your house until such time, if ever, that
you know.
That you know, and that might feel like an exciting possibility to you. Yeah. A clear, exciting possibility.
I think the ultimate thing for us to remember is that, as people have said, we are not humans having a spiritual experience. We are spirits having a human experience, and that ultimately, no matter what happens, we are eternal, infinite beings, and we'll always be all right.
Yeah.
I've actually heard a wrinkle on that one.
Yes, what's the
wrinkle? We're actually spirits having a human
that's what I was
having
saying.
a human experience of spirituality.
Of spirituality.
I like
yes.
that. Yeah.
The extra
like a
little
whole-
dimension.
Yeah, well, this is the whole, what if you couldn't fail? What if there really is no such thing? And what if you really are perfect and your well-being is innate? And so the idea that we drift away from that is fine, but we keep coming back to it. We came up with the first priority, love it. You just love it. And then it kind of reorganizes and go, okay, that can come along too, right?
Sure.
And with that, we should break again. Pay some more bills. We're getting all of our bills here.
Didn't
See the
we
part
pay
that's
getting all our bills
activated
paid?
for me?
Didn't we
part-
pay the last? I thought we did that
I don't know,
already.
Spence, give me a thumbs up. Are we?
Don't we ever get a check around here?
We're gonna have to work that out.
We will be right back, folks, after these words.
Welcome back to Cutting Edge Consciousness, thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
And we're back. Thank you for staying with us.
I didn't know who was going to welcome us back right there. We had a little.
Back and forth, back and forth.
Hello?
But we are grateful that you stay with us. I'm always grateful that you stay with us. Some of those commercial breaks can be long.
And keep coming back. Daryl, we're grateful you keep coming back.
Well, we have them actually.
I'm having fun.
Yeah, we have. The door actually only swings one way. And
I'm in here. I can't get out.
On air. So
I'm locked in.
So I want to go someplace. I want to cross a frontier here for a second. We are all storytellers in this room. The three of us have a very, very long history, have made a large part of our lives, have been dedicated to sharing stories, to exploring our own stories, to understanding our stories, and to becoming more free inside of them, making them wilder and juicier, expanding imagination. And then something occurred to me that sort of blew it all up in a most delicious way. We are beginning to become increasingly attuned to energy itself and to the experience of energy itself and to resonances and to the sort of dynamic complexity of what happens when we tune into a particular signal and how that precipitates into experience. So all that adds up to a relationship with all that is post-narrative. There will come a time, I believe, when our stories are held more and more lightly in the same way that our dreams, how we've all had the experience of waking up with some lucidity inside our dreams and realize this is, as the poet said, sound and fury signifying nothing. Well, it signifies everything, but it is strictly metaphoric. It is only poetry. And they're all like a kaleidoscopic reflection of energy states. Well, what happens when we become sufficiently attuned to these energy states that we begin to devote more and more of our attention to expressing ourselves in that way?
I think that question was for you, Daryl.
That was really nice.
I would not want to judge
that was nicely swatted.
Yeah, you handle that one, okay?
that question actually may even be for Bashar.
First question goes to Daryl.
I better tap in a little bit here. I think what you have sparked with that statement, and based on the idea of, or the structure of dream, because we are living a dream, is that I think a dream or our experience, whatever the experience is that we wake up and remember as a dream, doesn't happen that way in the experience itself. I think the experience happens in an instant. But because we are focused in a reality of space and linear time, we stretch it out and we think the dream lasted that long. Where it happened, it lasted in an instant.
Or it's out of time. I mean, it's often beyond time. It's not even that.
It's the closest I can express to it. It's that single moment of existence.
And then we string them like pearls on a...
Exactly. When it filters back into our physical consciousness, it has to be stretched out for us to even know or remember that we had an experience.
Yeah, and story is how we organize it.
And story is exactly how we organize it. And story, I think we may have talked about this last time, I don't know. One of the realizations that I made that was powerful for me is that story structure is a part of our psyche.
I don't know. I'm so in the moment that...
It's part of our psyche. And that's why when someone tells a story, if you hit all the right chords, that's why it resonates with us, because you're hitting those points that are embedded and built into our psyche for how we retain information here. And stories that don't hit those points aren't retained. It's like people go, well, it didn't make sense to me.
But now bend back a little, 1 or 2 clicks, because you're speaking to a consciousness that is primarily concerned with becoming relational with our subconscious.
Yes.
And at the same time, we are increasingly tapping into what is timeless. And that is an unconscious experience.
Well, I see it actually as
both.
I see subconscious as heading in that direction, because to me, and what Bashar has explained, is that subconscious and unconscious are not actually below consciousness; they're above it.
Yes. So we
Physical
exist
consciousness
inside of
physical consciousness is the lowest level, and when you start to go into the subconscious, you're going higher, and when you start to go into the
Even
unconscious,
bigger.
you're going even bigger. So you're actually going back up, in a sense, to that frequency of timelessness.
So when we, as we begin to recalibrate and develop conscious relationship with our own subconscious and our unconscious experience, less and less does our experience need to be shoehorned into a linear narrative.
Right. Things start happening quicker. They start happening in a more concentrated form, more synchronous.
Very dreamlike.
Very dreamlike. Right. Time
different idea of
seems to
causality.
dissolve, right. Or no causality
Or no
at all.
now, yes. So we're now cause is no
exactly.
longer leading to effect. As Bashar said to me
Right.
30 years ago, the present is not the result of the past.
Right.
So
We
then
create the
if
past from the present.
we are generating it in the
present,
moment
in
and
the moment.
calling it history.
So
And what strikes me is it matches up with storylines. They're just threads of possibility going backwards and forwards that we're on.
So now
there's infinite storylines.
So
There's
we are
infinite threads of
understanding
possibility.
that. So then beyond story,
Right.
there is more. And certainly what I am becoming aware of is the relationship to energy and frequency and resonance states as being, as having the next truth that I am able to access in terms of it being causal.
Yes.
And I want to know what you have to say about that.
Well, I'm going to go back to the film that we're working on right now, the Bashar documentary, because there is a comparison made in some sense between Bashar's civilization and our own. And one of the greatest significant differences is how they experience story compared to us. They experience it in a very different way. They connect to creation from a very different perspective. And they exhibit that whole synchronous interaction that happens so spontaneously and so simultaneously that it doesn't even necessarily look like it has a beginning and an ending. It's just all one moment of experience. And that, in a sense, could be said to be a new story paradigm, that everything is happening all at once. And you can kind of holographically pull out from it whatever component you need at any particular moment to benefit however you wish to tell the story. But I think we're gaining a greater realization that all the stories exist now.
And so Bashar's experience, the civilization Essassani, for those of our listeners who don't know that, who haven't heard that, that experience is more of a felt sense experience and less of much less of a tightly wound narrative experience. It sounds to me, when I hear it discussed, it sounds to me like a conscious awareness of the poetics of all that is, that everything is personal and also transpersonal simultaneously.
Yes, it would be like, to continue the analogy, it'd be like going to a movie theater and the projectionist running 50 movies on the screen at once. And you look and you catch what you catch, and that's the story
because
that you're
you're
creating.
watching at 24 frames a second, you're watching it 50 frames a second,
and you're watching it 60 frames a
and
second.
occasionally you're even changing your
frame
speed
rate.
variable.
Exactly. But that becomes your story, and it's actually plucked from an infinite number of simultaneously coexisting films or
And
stories.
the ecstasy,
Yeah.
the joy that Bashar refers to, is in the knowing that I have my hand on the variac
Right.
that allows me to change the frame rate,
Right.
and that I can experience energy states that are played out.
Right. I am a co-creator. I am free to choose who I am, who I wish to experience myself.
And
to
so
be.
it is more, it sounds like a statement, but it is a question. It is more of a energy experience backstopped by reality, by so-called reality creation, than it is in our experience, we look at reality creation and we make stories about it, and we think that's the
Well, that
big
usually,
game.
from my perspective, that usually tracks back to a control game. When we're trying to play the co-creator from the standpoint of, I know the laws and I'm going to bend them and twist them so that I can control this thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I feel like
Right.
what we're talking about here is not that.
No.
It's a capacity.
It's the realization that you are a co-creator, not trying.
Yeah, there's no
to
effort
be.
involved.
Right, not trying to be. It's waking up. It's a lucid dream.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's waking
So we
up
are
in the dream.
controlling because we do not have because we are adding on the capacity, the skill, the mastery, the experience. We are adding that on, the love, the growth, so that we can play in a bigger dimensional experience, not better, just with more toys, with more lights on than before. And it is fundamentally, it is form follows function. The form of it is a very different experience. And that is one of the things that keeps us in the smaller sandbox, because it is fundamentally terrifying to be in what, unless we're ready for it, looks just like chaos.
Yeah, but let's use the synchronicity of that word. It's fundamental.
It's fun.
Fundamental.
Or mental to fun.
Or mental fun.
Let's go turn it around. We go from mental to fun, because it is not a mental state.
No, not really.
And this is largely
There
a
may
mental
be
state.
side effects that can be processed by the mental state, but essentially no. It's a state of just pure experience.
Yeah.
That just means there's road work outside. We have big amber lights flashing. Either that means there's road work,
Or
it
Bashar
means
saying
or
hello.
Bashar has been kidnapped.
Or
and
we're
shot.
on fire. Or the building is on fire.
What it really means is that the news is coming on.
Is that what it means?
Yeah, it does. It's the news.
Does that mean that we're off air?
No. It's
Are we even preempted?
we're taping. So the fact is that whatever we're doing is going on with another reality
Simultaneously.
Simultaneously.
See?
People can listen to whatever they want.
They can tune in to whatever they want. If you want news,
You've got
This
it.
is good. This is like a real-time tutorial. Well,
Or
So-
a timeless one, a timeless tutorial.
now one of the other expressions that we are discovering, that we're calibrating to, is the felt sense of these energy states. For example, right now the room is quite thick in here. It looks like there's only 3 of us, but there's also...
There's 4 of us.
Yeah. Well, now there's 4 of us because Spence is back. But the room is quite thick. Energetically, it is quite thick. And there are uncommon senses that are coming online. There's obviously not only 5.
The expansion of consciousness involves the ability to perceive more of what's already here. So people start to perceive, when they expand their consciousness, other realities, other beings, other perspectives, other stories all around them, penetrating through them, because they're all right here, right now.
And that's when synchronicity becomes commonplace.
Yeah. Well, synchronicity is always commonplace.
Right.
We just get to pay more attention to
Right.
it. We start
we just
perceiving
focus it down
Yeah.
to the pencil.
Right. Yeah.
So things end where they begin. Your movie, Bashar, First Contact, that is really about what happens when an individual and then a community and then a world turns on sufficient lights to be in touch with more of what is already there.
Exactly.
And that you can make a movie about Bashar. I mean, 30 years ago, it was like us in a room with 6 people, and it was like, where are you going every Thursday night? I can't really say.
Yeah. You don't want to know.
I can't really say.
And they probably didn't want to know.
They probably didn't.
there's
They
a-
did want to know.
But now they do.
Yeah.
And it's a powerful thing. So let's talk about it. What's the
is.
Tell us about the movie.
the dates that's coming out?
Well,
What can you tell us?
no. We just finished principal photography. We're now in post-production. I'm assuming the film will probably be done somewhere around the end of the year, and then we'll see. We'll see.
Nice.
We'll see how it flows.
So we will be sure to link to that film on our website.
And Daryl will be back before then, but
Oh, well,
we'll
good.
come back right
I
before
would
it
love to.
opens, if not before.
Yeah. And for our listeners, what's up with you and the crowdfunding?
The crowdfunding, well, I hope that you'll, if you're interested, check out our crowdfunding page at Indiegogo. And the movie's called Milton's Secret.
I love it. I love it. It's exciting. It's exciting to see.
There's a lot of cool stuff on that page. There's a teaser for the film, and there's some concept art and some images and a really interesting message that we recorded with Eckhart talking about the themes and the issues of the movie. It's quite wonderful. Check it out.
And this fundamental distinction that we're shifting from an outer focused expression to an inner focused expression that happens to then create circumstances and so forth. But it's processed different, which is so beautifully illustrated, having read the script, not the current version, in this movie. So that, to me...
Yeah, we cut out all that part.
Oh, yeah. It's just an action film now.
Yeah.
Bang, bang.
Bang, bang.
We win.
Explosions.
Yeah, good guy,
He
bad
gets
guy.
the dog.
Gets the girl at the end.
No, he gets the dog. He's 11.
That's
Oh.
right.
But it's a girl dog.
It's a girl
Yeah,
dog.
well, so... folks, if you're interested in that, we invite you to check that out. We always invite you to join us on our Facebook page and, of course, to keep coming back to Cutting Edge Consciousness. Thanks for listening.